Hey, we're back. Liquid Lunch, Daryl Bars here with Eric Gilboard, and we're talking today about companies that need to transition,
Right.
maybe owners that are aging and need to think about what to do with their business, right?
Absolutely. And
Mm.
in fact, what's happening now is that, um, you know, boomer business owners are really anybody who was born between 1946 and 1964. So it
Okay.
puts them in their kind of early to mid 60s. And it's interesting, we've been getting a lot of calls lately from owners who are, in fact, in their 70s, in their 80s,
Right.
and they're, I wouldn't say panicking, but they want to get out.
Right.
They're sorry that they missed the window over the last 5 or 10 years, and they're anxious to move along. They're not even interested in improving the company and selling for more. They're just interested in getting out, and that's sort of a relatively new phenomenon, and it's strictly because of nature. You can't walk away from the fact that you're aging, and you can't go back. Unfortunately, I mean,
Right.
if I could, I would. But
So why are people still like stuck? I say stuck with a company at 70, 80, mid
because they
80s?
love what they do.
They love what they do.
They
Okay.
built something over in this case, those cases of somebody who's in their 70s or 80s, could be 35, 40, 45, 50 years,
Right.
doing something. You don't just walk away from that
Right.
so quickly. So what happens is you look for every convenient reason not to do anything about it, and you keep putting it off, and you keep putting it off, and you keep putting it off. And eventually you turn around and there's a health scare, whether it's you or your spouse or something happens to the business. We've had some recent cases where it's been the next generation that's been given the responsibility of the business, and it may have happened, maybe 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, as some of these owners are older, and what transpired was the failure of the child to succeed with the business. And oftentimes you get an owner who had created a wonderful company, and all of a sudden, after a period of time, they're not doing very well.
Now, I'm going to hypothesize, but I think
Sure.
one of the big changes in the last 10, 15 years has been competition from overseas, especially Chinese companies and other young, really sprightly companies that are entering fields that at one time, if I started a company back in, let's say, 1980 or 1990, I may not have had these concerns, and all of a sudden things are coming at me, let's say for newer owners or older owners, and how do I deal with this new kind of market? Right?
Well, see, it's interesting you bring that up, and I'll tell you why. What we've been getting is a lot of calls from small, mid-sized companies, so they could be 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 or $50 million in sales. And while that might have been a concern in the past, what they've done is they've become specialized. So oftentimes when we sit down with a company, they're really good at doing X. They don't necessarily they're really good at doing custom work on something. It could be lighting, it could be metal fabrication, it could be millwork, it could be anything. But what's happened over the last couple of decades, because there's been competition, they've gotten out of the commodity business, if you will, and they've gotten into more specialized. So you end up finding companies that found a niche over the last number of years, and there's no way that a Chinese company can compete with them, because the expertise, the experience, the attention to detail, the customization has kept them going and kept them separated from larger overseas companies. So the truth is today they're in very different markets, and one doesn't really bother the other one.
Okay. And how about automation? Is that something that you find these companies have kept up with, or are they lagging
Oh, absolutely,
behind?
yeah. You walk into a lot of these companies and they've got tons of equipment. They've got the latest equipment. They know what they need. They know what kind of equipment they require, and so they go out and get it. In fact, in many cases, the companies that we're dealing with, the owners are on the leading edge of the equipment. I mean, they have good relationships with the suppliers. They understand when a customer needs something special or something out of the ordinary. And oftentimes you'll get owners that are in fact, innovators in terms of using equipment. Yeah.
Do you think maybe because they've sunk money and their time into things in the last maybe 10 years of their company's lifetime, that they're reluctant to let it go because they either want to get to see where it leads them and they keep waiting, or what role does that play?
I think that their horizon is much shorter than that. They know where something's going to take them. They don't. They're not waiting. They're not looking out 10 years. They're looking out next year. They've been around for a long time. They've seen a lot of things happen. They tend to be more on the leading edge of what is trending and what is happening. So they'll go out and they'll go into the marketplace with new products. They'll find new equipment to do things in new ways. They're somewhat more innovative than anything than lagging behind.
All right. So what are you offering these companies? You're saying you've got a good business going, but you want to get out. This is what we're going to do. What is it that you are doing for these companies in that turnaround procedure?
Well, there's a couple of ways that you can look at it. If somebody wants to get out, fine, we can bring a buyer to the table. And to us, it's important to find the right buyer and match them up with the right seller. And it's less about money, and or not completely less about money, but there's a good helping of the right personality, the shared vision of what could happen with the company. Typically, an owner is looking for somebody who can, not only take over the business, but take it where the owner knew it could go, because you never get where you want to get to if you're always, innovating and you're always growing. So they're looking for the right company to work with them. In some cases, just to take it over. In other cases, they may want to use our services to increase the value of the business. They might want to, as an example, we've got companies where someone bought a smaller company, 5 or 10 years ago, and the smaller company is doing literally a couple $100,000 in business. And when you look at the specialized nature of what that little company is doing, that side purchase that they made, and the reason they're making money from it is because they can sell that product, they can manufacture it under their roof, and there's synergies in terms of doing kind of two kinds of business under one roof. On the other hand, that company that's doing $200,000 could easily be doing $2 million. And why aren't they doing $2 million? Because it's not the main business. The owners aren't really thinking about it. They're not worrying about it. But when you're getting ready to start thinking about selling, it's a very simple question. Would you like to sell a $2 million business, or would you like to sell a $200,000 business? And you have that choice. And so once you're faced with that, that realization that you have a choice, there's a lot of things that you can do. You can improve the sales and marketing, which is typical. You can improve the operations and the processes. But oftentimes it comes down to sales and marketing.
Okay, so you're trying to provide a win-win scenario where the person getting out gets what they want out of it and peace of mind, and the person coming in has a functioning operation there that's ready to make even more money in the future.
Now, what's also happening is a popular model is that you have buyers that are coming in and buying 70% of a business, and the owner's retaining 15 or 20 or 30% of the business. And why would they do that? Well, there's a kind of a synergistic approach where the buyer takes advantage of the seller's obvious connections and expertise and experience. And if things go the right way, you could sell your 70% of your business for X amount of dollars. You can work with the new buyer over a period of time, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years, and if that buyer is aggressive and really grows the business, potentially your 30% that you retained can be worth exponentially more than the 70% that you sold before. So it's kind of like having your cake and eating it too.
Nice. Okay, and you've seen a lot of people liking this. Good. And what are some of the hottest businesses that are selling right now, like that you're seeing, or is that too broad of a question?
No, it's an interesting question, because what's happening is that people are buying unsexy, below the radar widget makers who have good cash flow, they have good management, they have a good staff, they make specialized widgets.
Okay, what are these widgets? Because no one's making widgets. So what are the widgets are code for what?
Widgets could be anything. They could be a metal fabrication company that manufactures certain type boxes or cases. And they manufacture a variety of things. They have in-house design. They have tons of experience. Somebody comes to them with a requirement for something. It could be, a case for those lights, for example, and so they might design something specific for that. You've got other people that are in the market for businesses, in some cases specific, narrow niche businesses. So, they've got a platform company. They bought a company, they're using it as a base, and then they're buying other related businesses to grow this platform. So they might go from, say, a $5 million platform company, it could be in any kind of a business, and, it could be hockey equipment, for example, and what they're going to do is they're going to buy a whole bunch of related companies and get themselves up to maybe a $25 million company, and then flip it, and then maybe start it over again. We had an investor, somebody that we had a conversation with, who made $50 million by selling two of his software companies, and it was military-grade encryption software. So a very specific area of business, and he had his $50 million, and he'd done a tremendous amount of research in terms of where should he put the money and where would the best investment be, stock market, hedge funds, all kinds of things. And one might think that an individual like that, he would be buying tech companies, he'd be buying software companies. No. He decided after doing all the research that the best way to protect his money for multi-generation, for his children, his grandchildren, his great-grandchildren, his plan is to go out and buy 10 $5 million widget makers.
Right.
So, Widget Maker is a company that has 40 lathes in the back room, and they manufacture custom pieces out of metal. And so an auto manufacturer might order 5 or 10,000, pieces of metal that are lathed in a certain way, and that's the order. Or it could be, giant pieces of metal, or it could be millwork, or it could be anything. But that's what people are looking for. They're not looking, not everybody wants to put their money in the latest and greatest tech exercise.
Now, it makes you think, has anybody come to you with a company that you think this is obsolete? We just can't do anything with this company? Is there such a thing even? Or?
Yeah, there are companies that are way past their due date. They've just been out of it for so long, and there's so much competition, and there's no real requirement for what they have, and there's no energy in the company, and you'd be better off just starting up. Or clearly just looking for something else. But it happens. Not every company that we talk to is capable of doing great things. We had a conversation today with a company that is in fact capable of doing great things, and there were some various family issues that got involved in the company, and it had been doing pretty well for, literally 40 or 50 years, and in the furniture business, and great customers, great manufacturing capability, really good quality furniture, nice design. Fell down over the last few years in terms of sales and marketing, and honestly, these are very easy fixes. So you can take somebody who's gone through a bit of a downturn, and depending on what it is that they have going for them, they can do very well. There was a company we were talking to yesterday in the custom lighting business, and I asked the question. I said, you created this, you created that, you modified these large lights for for industrial use. Do you have patents on them? And he said, well, no, we've sort of thought about it, but we haven't done anything with it.
But they need the patent.
They are potentially sitting on a tremendous amount of value in intellectual property, but they've never really done anything with it. They've just been happy with what you might call a lifestyle business, a $2-3 million company that provides a good living and a good lifestyle for the owner, but in reality they could be significantly bigger than they are.
Now, what you were talking about with the family thing and that, I don't. You can just pass on this question, but it brings up the Stronach situation right now. I don't know if you want to get into that at all, but I find that fascinating. Like if you have any take on that, but here's an example of an elderly man who had other interests. He wanted to go into politics. He decided he was going to give it to his daughter, and then he came back and he has a vision, and it doesn't work out. What do you see that, or any comment on that? Or
it happens on all different sizes of businesses. It happens all the time. It's unfortunate. It's interesting. in that situation, I mean, it is a family business.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a $2 or $3 million family business, but
2 or 3 billion, but okay.
But in essence, it's a family business. I
Mhm.
mean, you can look at lots of other
Right.
organizations, the Seagram, Empire.
Sure. Mhm.
They lost, one person came in and lost $2-3 billion,
Right.
and that's not just that person losing $2 or $3 billion. It's all the extended family
Right.
that are inheritors of
Mhm.
that family fortune, the Bronfman fortune in that
Right.
case. But in the Stronach case, it's unfortunate that family squabbles are being played out in public. That's not necessary. You would think, with all their wealth and experience and resources available to them, why is it that a situation like this has to happen? And I'll give you another example. There was a company I know of that the owner was just getting ready to sell, and they were literally days away from a very large sale, $28 million sale.
Right.
And at the last minute, the owner decided to pull out. I mean, I'm going to hand you a check for $28 million.
Right.
All I's are dotted, all T's are crossed, all due diligence is done, everything is
Right.
complete. And you back away?
For family reasons, probably.
It was for family reasons. I can't go into the detail
Right.
of it, but it was a daughter.
Right.
And when I talk about this at any speaking events that I do, you kind of look out at the audience, and my comment is, fathers will do really stupid things for their daughters, and for whatever reason, there's that relationship, and every father in the audience kind of looks at me and goes,
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
Sure, I know what you mean.
So do you try to counsel companies?
I become
to
a family therapist.
Yeah, also to be careful about family stuff, and maybe you should sell to an outsider because they're just going to provide you with that, like you're saying, the big check, and it's time to leave this. Maybe your offspring's better with some seed money to start something.
Oh, the chances of your offspring taking over the business and being successful is slim to none.
Slim to none.
Third generation, so going from first to second to third generation. Do you know what the failure rate is in third generation? 97% failure.
Okay.
So it's almost impossible. So second generation is not hugely better. It's something like 50, 60%.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
we will say when we talk to an owner and their initial plan is, well, my son, my daughter, both are going to take it over. I have a few questions for them, and I'll ask them. So, are they qualified? Well, sort of. And you hear all the excuses. Are they interested? Well, we haven't really talked about it. Can they afford to buy the business? What do you mean? Can they afford to buy it from you? Oh, no, they're going to do it on an earn-out basis. And I said, well, good luck, because, that's a recipe for failure.
Right.
And I have lots of examples where, one of the children took over the business, and in some cases, it's really sad, and more often than you would think.
No,
what they've done is they've not only destroyed the business, they've now destroyed the parents' retirement fund.
Exactly.
That's sad.
That's sad, yeah.
That's a terrible thing. So what I'll often say to owners is that if family's involved in the business, if it's 1 or 2 or 3 siblings or what have you, family will act under the roof of the office in exactly the same way they act at the dining room table on Friday night. So if your middle child is quiet and tries to please everybody at the Friday night dinner, because that's their place in the family, that will be their place in the business. And if you think that somebody can go from being irresponsible child within the family environment, and then all of a sudden they're going to get into the business, they're going to be Mr. or Mrs. Personality and Mr. or Mrs. Responsibility, it's not going to happen. If this is the kid that continually smashes up the family boat at the cottage, don't count on them to all of a sudden come in and be the cream of responsibility in the company.
Wise words, I think.
It's not going to happen. So with the Stronachs, I don't know exactly what happened with them, but it's unfortunate. They're both really bright, accomplished people. You would think that they could work out whatever their differences are. My guess is that the differences come down to this is what I want, this is what I want. This is what I thought, this is what I thought.
Different visions completely.
I had a conversation with somebody earlier today, and and one of the first things she said to me is that the brother had been involved in the business, and he had, in her words, extreme entitlement issues. I went, whoa,
Yeah, it's not uncommon. Right?
No, it's not uncommon. And I, again, if I had $1 for every time somebody told me that a sibling had entitlement issues and then killed the company,
Right.
it's not
There
an
you go.
unusual thing.
Yeah.
So be very, very careful.
Good. Okay, so these are a lot of things for people to think about. Any last words for today on any other?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not too late. No matter what your age is, no matter where you are within the life cycle of the business, start today, make a call us, have a conversation. Okay. The other thing is you have lots of options available to you. It isn't, well, I'm going to sell the business or close down. That isn't, those aren't the only options. You have lots and lots of options available to you. And, again, we like to start the conversation with what's in the best interest of the owner. We help them determine what would be the best thing for, outcome for them, and then work back in terms of finding buyers and participants and investors and whatnot. But, you have lots of choices. The one thing that owners need to appreciate is they don't know what they don't know. And you really need to start finding out what it is that you don't know. Typically, your accountant and your lawyer, they've been telling you the same thing for years. Unless they have a lot of experience in buying and selling businesses, I'm not so sure that they're going to be able to help you in this area. So you need to surround yourself with a team of people that have been down this road, and they can lay out what your options are for you.
So there you go, people. So ericgilbert.com is one way you can get in touch, or warrenbdc.com, and that will be on the URL there. So that's fantastic. So business owners, if you're ready to think about even transitioning, you don't have to do it, but even thinking, get in touch with Eric. It's time.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, Eric.
All right.